It was a typical Friday night for Bill Maher, a glass of red wine in hand and his mind half focused on the news cycle. He had just wrapped up another heated episode of Real Time when his phone buzzed. A number he didn't recognize flashed on the screen, a DC area code. He almost ignored it but decided to pick up. "Bill, it's Bob. Kid Rock." The voice was unmistakable, rough and familiar. "Bob? What's up?" Bill said, leaning back in his chair. "Listen, you're gonna think I'm joking, but Trump wants you at a dinner at the White House. Just a small thing. Kid Rock, Dana White, and a couple others. We need you there." Bill raised an eyebrow. This had to be some sort of prank. "Wait, hold on. Trump? Wants me? At the White House? For dinner?" "I know it sounds crazy," Bob said, "but he thinks it'll be good. Different views, you know? Just come. You might be surprised." Bill was silent for a moment, the absurdity of the situation sinking in. But curiosity got the better of him. He wasn't scared, not of Trump or Kid Rock or Dana White, but of the optics, the backlash from his audience, the headlines. Still, there was a small part of him that thought, what if this could actually be something interesting? 3 days later, Bill found himself stepping off a plane at Dulles International Airport, a black SUV waiting to whisk him away to the heart of American politics. As he neared the White House gates, a cold breeze cut through the air, reminding him of the gravity of the situation. He passed through security, walked down quiet hallways, and entered the intimate, softly lit dining room where the night would unfold. There, sitting at the head of the table, was Donald Trump, flanked by Kid Rock and Dana White. The room went silent as Bill walked in. Trump stood with a grin. Well, look who finally showed up." "Thought you were too scared to come," Trump teased. Bill shot back with a smirk. "I'm not scared of awkward dinners. Just bad food." The dinner began with small talk, but soon it veered into deeper, more contentious waters. As the first course, seared scallops, arrived, Trump turned to Bill with a question that would set the tone for the evening. "So, Bill, do you actually believe this country is better off now than it was 4 years ago?" Bill took a moment, picking up his fork, considering how to respond. "Depends on who you ask," he said, a wry smile creeping across his face. Kid Rock laughed, clearly ready for the sparks to fly. But it wasn't long before the real discussion began, one about the border, immigration, and what the country needed moving forward. Bill, as always, refused to give in to simple answers. The conversation was far from comfortable, but it was honest. As the main course, roasted lamb with mashed potatoes, was served, the tone in the room shifted. Trump, Kid Rock, and Dana White were no strangers to controversy, but Bill had a way of cutting through the noise with sharp humor and even sharper opinions. "So, Bill," Trump began, his voice low and deliberate, "what do you think about the border? You think it's a disaster?" Bill didn't rush to answer. He wasn't looking to make a quick joke or avoid a confrontation. He wanted to engage. "I think it's complicated," Bill said slowly. "If you want a real solution, not just a campaign slogan, you've got to be honest about why people are coming here. It's not just about walls or fences. It's about understanding the root causes." Trump chuckled, clearly not buying it. "So you want open borders then? Just say it." Bill shook his head. "I want rational policy. Not a circus." There was a brief, tense silence before Kid Rock, ever the voice of reason, or at least humor, leaned in. Hey, we're all eating here. No throwing chairs." Dana White, arms crossed and watching the conversation unfold like a spectator at a fight, smirked at Kid Rock's comment. "Don't tempt me." Despite the tension, the conversation began to take on an unexpected depth. Kid Rock spoke up about the division in America, how no one could seem to talk anymore without being labeled a villain or a snowflake. "I've been canceled more times than your last 5 tour stops," Bill quipped, to a round of laughter. Trump nodded in agreement. "I like you, Bill. You talk trash, but at least you don't sound like you're reading from a cue card like most people." Bill shrugged. "I'm not a robot, but I'd rather deal with someone who speaks their mind than someone who's scared to say anything." For a moment, the room felt less like a political battle and more like a meeting of people who had all been in the public eye long enough to understand the consequences of speaking honestly. But the night wasn't over, and Bill's thoughts were only beginning to swirl. By the time dessert, chocolate mousse, was served, he had one more question to ask. As the meal wound down and the conversation grew quieter, Bill couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was one thing he needed to ask, something that had been in the back of his mind all evening. The group was relaxed now, their earlier tension replaced with a strange camaraderie. Bill looked at Trump, who had been surprisingly reflective throughout the meal. "Donald," Bill asked, his voice calm but probing, "do you ever think about running for a third term?" The room went still. Kid Rock shifted in his seat, and Dana White looked at Trump, waiting for an answer. Trump didn't flinch, didn't shy away. He simply looked at Bill and said, "I'm thinking about a lot of things. But we'll see how strong this country is by the time we get to that bridge." Bill nodded slowly. "That's not a no," he replied, studying Trump's expression. It was clear that the former president wasn't just playing political games. He was thinking deeply about his legacy, about his place in history. The conversation shifted again, this time into the territory of democracy and the dangers of undermining it when the system doesn't yield the results one expects. Bill spoke passionately about the importance of respecting the rules, even when they don't go your way. Trump, ever the contrarian, had a different view. "What if the game's rigged?" he said with a smirk. Bill raised an eyebrow. "Then no system is perfect. But we can't just abandon it because we don't like the outcome. That's how democracies fall apart." Dana White, always the pragmatist, jumped in. "It's not just the politics. It's the media, the schools, the companies, everyone's afraid to say the wrong thing. That's what's really killing us." Trump leaned back. "You're right. Everyone's playing it safe, and maybe that's why we're losing." Bill glanced around the room, the weight of the conversation sinking in. For a brief moment, it wasn't about left or right, Trump or Maher, Kid Rock or Dana White. It was about the idea of having a real conversation, without the walls of division or judgment. As they stood to leave, Trump stopped by the window, looking out over the south lawn. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable this time. It was reflective. "Sometimes," Trump said, his voice softer, "I wish we could just go back to a time when people could argue and still be friends afterward." Bill gave a small smile. "Yeah, me too." And as they left the room, Bill realized that while this night might not change the world, it had changed something within him. Maybe, just maybe, the first step toward progress was as simple as sitting down, breaking bread, and listening.